If you enter that room, you won't come out alive." The warning left Tasha Williams's lips before her professional training could censor them, whispered so urgently across the mahogany concierge desk that she could catch the sharp, clean scent of Kang Min-yee's expensive sandalwood cologne. The Korean Mafia boss went perfectly still, his hand pausing midair as he reached for his gold-stamped room key. His eyes, dark, calculating, and cold, snapped to hers with an intensity that made Tasha's heart hammer against her ribs like a trapped bird. Tasha had been the face of the Grand Imperial for 4 years, and she had survived by mastering one unspoken law: be the ghost in the machine. See everything, hear everything, but say nothing that wasn't "welcome home, sir." But she had noticed the tactical boots on the maintenance crew that went up 5 minutes ago, and she'd seen the subtle, rhythmic nod Anton Volkov, Min-yee's own head of security, gave to the shadow waiting by the elevator bank. Behind her, the lobby's grand chandelier threw glittering, artificial light over a scene that felt increasingly like a trap. Tasha knew with a chilling clarity that if Min-yee stepped into that elevator and let those doors hiss shut, the man who had always treated her with a rare, quiet respect would never be seen again. Min-yee didn't move for a heartbeat, his gaze boring into Tasha, as if searching for a lie. Then, with a glacial calmness, he signaled to Volkov, "The service elevator, now." The redirection was seamless, a dry run that bypassed the primary lift. Minutes later, the muffled, rhythmic thud of a flashbang echoed from the penthouse floor above, followed by the frantic chatter of security radios. Tasha's warning had been the thin line between a routine arrival and a massacre. Instead of retreating to safety, Min-yee gripped Tasha's elbow firm but not unkind, and guided her toward his private, wood-paneled study on the mezzanine. The door clicked shut, sealing out the lobby's artificial perfection. He didn't sit. He leaned against a heavy oak desk, the shadow of a predator finally showing through his tailored gray suit. "You aren't on my payroll for tactical intelligence, Tasha," he said, his voice a low, melodic rasp that vibrated in the small room. He studied her trembling hands, then her steady eyes. "My men, trained for war, saw nothing. You behind a desk saw a grave. I need to know exactly how." Tasha took a breath, the scent of expensive sandalwood still clinging to the air between them. "People don't look at me, Mr. Kang. They look through me. To them, I'm just a part of the lobby's architecture, like the marble or the tapestries." She stepped closer to the oak desk, her voice gaining a sharp, clinical edge. "That's why I see what your soldiers miss. Your security team usually scans the horizon for threats, but they've stopped watching the internal feeds. They're looking for a storm while the house is already flooding." She explained the plumbers who arrived at noon, men with soft hands but the heavy, rhythmic gait of those used to wearing tactical plates. She pointed out how their boots were scarred at the toes, a mark of urban combat training, not pipe wrenches. "And Anton," she added, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He stopped checking the camera blind spots. A man whose life is keeping you alive doesn't suddenly become lazy unless he already knows what's coming. I didn't need a gun to see the trap. I just had to watch the patterns that didn't belong." The next morning, the lobby felt different, colder, despite the sunlight streaming through the arched windows. Tasha was back behind the mahogany desk, her royal blue uniform pressed and her expression a mask of professional neutrality. But she felt the weight of a gaze before she saw him. Anton Volkov approached with a measured, heavy tread, his tactical gear replaced by a sharp black suit that couldn't hide his predatory frame. He leaned over the desk, his shadow falling across her hands. "A quiet night, Miss Williams," he said, his voice a low, grating rasp. He didn't ask a question, he made a statement. His eyes, devoid of warmth, searched her face for a crack in the porcelain. Strange how the elevator malfunctioned just as Mr. Kang arrived. A lucky coincidence for some, a disaster for others. He tapped a thick finger against her name tag, his smile never reaching his eyes. "You should stick to checking in guests, Tasha. Not everyone survives a change in schedule." When the clock struck 2:00 a.m., the Grand Imperial fell into a haunting, hollow silence. Tasha sat bathed in the cool blue glow of the security terminal, her fingers dancing across the keys with practiced stealth. She wasn't checking in guests, she was hunting ghosts. Every beep of the system felt like a gunshot in the quiet lobby. She pulled the encrypted logs for the penthouse elevator, cross-referencing them with the master keycard IDs. There it was, a pattern of maintenance swipes during hours when the halls should have been empty. But the chilling revelation wasn't just the frequency, it was the origin. A ghost-coded card, authorized under Volkov's personal override, had accessed the service stairwell 4 times in 48 hours. Each entry coincided with a complete blackout of the 42nd floor cameras. Tasha leaned back, her breath hitching as she realized Volkov hadn't just been planning a hit. He had been hosting the enemy inside Minyi's own sanctuary while the boss slept. Minyi appeared from the shadows of the marble pillars as if summoned by the gravity of her discovery. He didn't speak until they were tucked behind the velvet curtains of the darkened lounge, the city lights flickering like dying embers through the glass. He slid a sleek, unmarked burner phone across the small table, its black surface reflecting the cold calculation in his eyes. "This is our only line," he murmured, his voice a low, dangerous velvet. "No one else knows it exists, not even my most loyal soldiers." He leaned in, the scent of sandalwood mixing with the ozone of a gathering storm. "Anton thinks he's blinded me by cutting the cameras, but he's forgotten that the hotel has a heartbeat. You are that heartbeat, Tasha." His mission was clear. She was to remain the invisible receptionist, but her true role was now a tactical ghost, feeding him the anomalies that his corrupted security detail worked so hard to hide. The burner phone vibrated against Tasha's thigh, a cold reminder of her new reality. While the lobby remained a sanctuary of hushed whispers and golden light, she began to see the rot beneath the gilding. It wasn't just the guards or the men in the shadows. It was the building itself. Examining the central climate control logs, she found a series of manual overrides originating from the security hub. Volkov wasn't just planning a breach. He was weaponizing the Grand Imperial's very breath. The ventilation system for the penthouse had been isolated, the fail-safes bypassed to allow for a pressurized delivery of colorless, odorless gas. It was a sophisticated, invisible execution that would leave Minyi's guards slumped over their weapons before a single shot was fired. Tasha's hands went cold as she realized the maintenance she'd tracked wasn't for surveillance. It was for the plumbing of a tomb. The hotel had been turned into a weapon, and only she held the blueprint to disarm it. The alarm didn't sound. It was a silence so absolute it screamed. At 3:14 a.m., the lobby's digital clock flickered and died, and Tasha felt the hotel's heartbeat flatline. Volkov had moved. On her monitor, the pressurized gas levels in the penthouse vents spiked. A silent, invisible executioner was being unleashed. The burner phone in her pocket stayed cold, meaning Minyi was likely already being watched. She had 2 seconds to remain the invisible receptionist or become a target. Choosing the latter, she abandoned her post, slipping through a concealed mahogany door behind the desk. She met Minyi in the dim, concrete throat of the service stairwell. "The elevators are kill boxes," she whispered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline-soaked air. Volkov's men were closing in, their heavy boots echoing from the marble above. Tasha gestured to the narrow, grease-slicked maintenance tunnels that mapped the building's guts. "If you want to live, you follow the ghost." The service tunnel spat them out into the darkened grand ballroom, a cavernous space of velvet and shadows. Volkov's team swept in from the main entrance, their tactical lasers cutting through the gloom like red scars. "It ends here, Minyi," Volkov's voice boomed, his silhouette framed by the towering arched doors. But Tasha wasn't looking at the guns. She was looking at the master winch control hidden behind a decorative column. She knew the Grand Imperial's history. The heavy, 2-ton crystal chandelier above the center floor was overdue for its structural inspection, held by a single, compromised tension pin. As Volkov stepped into the center of the room to deliver the final blow, Tasha jammed a heavy brass fire tool into the manual release. With a shriek of shearing metal, the ceiling groaned. The massive crystal centerpiece plummeted, a rain of glass and iron that shattered the floor and sent the traitors diving for cover. In the chaos of blinding light and flying shards, the hunters became the hunted. The Grand Imperial returned to its gilded silence within the week, the shattered crystal replaced by a new, shimmering centerpiece that betrayed no hint of the violence it had ended. In the quiet of the mezzanine, Minyi leaned against the railing, his gray suit uncreased, his dark eyes fixed on the lobby below. He held out a gold-stamped card, a title that carried a salary and a seat at his table. "You saved a kingdom from within its walls, Tasha. You belong in my inner circle, not behind a concierge desk." Tasha looked at the card, then down at the mahogany desk where she had first whispered his salvation. She saw the new security team, men who moved with precision but still walked with the heavy, visible arrogance of power. They still didn't look at her. "No," she said softly, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. "Up there, I'm a target. Down here, I'm the only one who truly sees. I'll keep the keys, Mr. Kang. It's much easier to protect a king when no one knows you're the one holding the crown." Please like, comment, and subscribe.